There comes a moment in life when you realize that constantly being available to everyone is not kindness, it is exhaustion. Many people believe that saying yes to every request, answering every message immediately, and sacrificing their own needs is proof of love or loyalty. But over time, this habit quietly erodes your confidence, your peace, and your identity. Carl Jung's psychological perspective encourages us to look inward and ask an uncomfortable question. Why do we feel the need to be available all the time? Often, the answer has little to do with generosity and everything to do with fear. We fear rejection, criticism, loneliness, or disappointing others. Instead of living according to our own values, we begin living according to other people's expectations. The greatest danger of constant availability is that it disconnects you from yourself. Every time you ignore your own needs to satisfy someone else, you send your unconscious mind a powerful message. My needs matter less than theirs. Repeating this pattern for months or years creates an identity based on pleasing others rather than understanding yourself. Jung believed that true psychological growth comes from individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. That journey becomes almost impossible if your time, attention, and emotional energy are always controlled by someone else's demands. Think about the people who are constantly available. They answer every phone call, respond to every text within seconds, cancel their own plans to accommodate others, and rarely allow themselves to rest. At first, people may praise them as dependable or generous, but eventually, something changes. Instead of being appreciated, they become expected. Their kindness becomes ordinary, their sacrifices become invisible, and their presence becomes something others assume will always be there. This is one of life's quiet ironies. The more freely you give yourself away without limits, the less your presence is valued. Protecting your energy is not about becoming cold, selfish, or distant. It is about recognizing that your emotional resources are limited. Just as your body needs sleep to recover, your mind needs solitude to regain clarity. Your spirit needs silence to reconnect with itself. When every hour of your day belongs to someone else, there is no space left for reflection, creativity, or healing. Without realizing it, you begin surviving instead of living. Jung often emphasized the importance of facing the inner world. The unconscious speaks most clearly in moments of silence. Yet many people stay endlessly busy because silence forces them to confront thoughts and emotions they have avoided for years. Constant availability becomes a distraction from self-discovery. If every free moment is filled with conversations, obligations, or social approval, there is little opportunity to understand who you truly are beneath the roles you play. Healthy boundaries are one of the strongest forms of self-respect. A boundary is not a wall built to keep people out. It is a door that allows you to decide who enters, when they enter, and how much of your energy you choose to share. People who respect you will also respect your boundaries. Those who become angry when you begin protecting your time often benefited from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Their disappointment is not evidence that you are wrong. It is often evidence that the relationship depended on unlimited access to you. Many individuals confuse availability with love. They believe that if they are always there, they will never be abandoned. But love built upon self-sacrifice is fragile because it depends on ignoring your authentic self. Genuine relationships do not require you to erase your identity. The healthiest connections are formed between two complete individuals, not one person constantly giving while the other constantly receiving. Imagine your energy as a valuable garden. If every stranger is allowed to enter, pick flowers, and leave without contributing anything, eventually the garden becomes empty. Protecting your energy means choosing carefully who receives your time, your attention, and your emotional investment. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your inner world. Trust should be earned, not automatically given. There is also a hidden confidence that develops when you stop being available all the time. You no longer feel anxious if someone must wait for a reply. You no longer believe every request requires an immediate yes. Instead, you pause. You ask yourself whether the request aligns with your priorities, your values, and your well-being. This pause is powerful because it shifts your life from reaction to intention. Instead of allowing others to control your schedule, you begin making conscious decisions. One of the most transformative lessons in life is understanding that your worth is not measured by how accessible you are. Your value does not increase because you answer every call or solve every problem. Your value already exists. Protecting your time simply acknowledges that truth. People who truly care about you will not disappear because you take care of yourself. In fact, many will respect you more because they recognize that you respect yourself. The path towards psychological maturity is not about pleasing everyone. It is about becoming deeply connected to your own inner life. This requires courage because setting boundaries may disappoint people who were comfortable with unlimited access to you. Yet every healthy boundary strengthens your identity. Every moment of solitude deepens your self-awareness. Every decision to protect your energy reminds you that your life has purpose beyond meeting other people's expectations. Stop being available for everyone, not because you no longer care, but because you finally understand that caring for yourself is the foundation of caring for others. When your energy is protected, your mind becomes clearer, your relationships become healthier, and your life begins to reflect your own values instead of the endless demands of the world. That is where genuine confidence begins, and that is where true freedom is found. In a world that constantly encourages people to speak louder, post more, reply faster, and remain visible at all times, silence has become a forgotten strength. Many people fear disappearing even for a short while because they believe their value depends on being constantly noticed. They worry that if they stop reaching out, stop explaining themselves, or stop seeking attention, they will be forgotten. Yet one of the deepest psychological truths is that value is rarely created through constant availability. More often, it is discovered through quiet presence, emotional stability, and the ability to stand comfortably in solitude. From a Jungian perspective, silence is not emptiness. It is a space where the unconscious mind begins to speak. Most people spend their lives escaping this silence because it forces them to encounter emotions they have buried for years. The moment external distractions disappear, the inner world becomes impossible to ignore. Old fears emerge, unanswered questions surface, hidden insecurities reveal themselves. For this reason, many people fill every moment with conversation, entertainment, or endless activity. They mistake constant noise for a meaningful life, while the deepest transformation waits patiently in stillness. Learning to be silent does not mean suppressing your voice. It means no longer feeling the need to explain yourself to everyone. There comes a stage of emotional maturity when you realize that not every misunderstanding deserves a defense, not every criticism deserves a response, and not every opinion deserves your attention. Silence becomes a sign of confidence because it shows that your identity is no longer dependent on convincing other people of your worth. Many individuals unknowingly weaken their own influence by constantly trying to be understood. Whenever conflict appears, they rush to justify every decision. Whenever someone withdraws, they chase explanations. Whenever they are ignored, they seek reassurance. Although these reactions seem natural, they often communicate insecurity rather than strength. The person who constantly explains themselves silently asks for permission to exist. The person who remains calm allows their actions to speak louder than endless words. Your absence also has psychological power. Human beings naturally appreciate what they cannot constantly possess. When something is always available, the mind quickly adapts and begins to overlook its importance. This principle applies not only to material things, but also to relationships. If you are always present, always initiating conversations, always solving problems, and always making yourself accessible, others may eventually stop recognizing your value. Your presence becomes expected instead of appreciated. This does not mean you should manipulate people by intentionally disappearing. Genuine absence is different from emotional games. It is the natural result of building a meaningful life that does not revolve around gaining constant attention. When you become deeply committed to your own purpose, your work, your personal growth, and your inner peace, there will naturally be moments when you are unavailable. During those moments, people experience your absence honestly, not because you created distance to control them, but because your life has depth beyond seeking approval. Carl Jung believed that the path toward wholeness requires turning inward. Solitude is one of the greatest teachers on that journey. When you spend time alone without distraction, you begin observing parts of yourself that daily life often hides. You notice recurring fears, unconscious habits, emotional wounds, and forgotten dreams. At first, this process feels uncomfortable because silence removes the masks we wear in public. But over time, it becomes liberating. You stop defining yourself by other people's opinions and begin discovering your authentic identity. There is another reason silence creates value. It protects your emotional energy. Every unnecessary argument drains your attention. Every attempt to change someone who refuses to understand you steals your peace. Every effort to gain approval from people committed to misunderstanding you leaves you emotionally exhausted. Mature individuals learn that peace is often worth more than being right. They choose careful words, speak when necessary, and allow silence to finish conversations that no amount of explanation could ever resolve. Observe the people who possess genuine confidence. They rarely compete for attention. They do not interrupt every conversation to prove their intelligence. They are comfortable listening more than speaking. When they finally choose to express themselves, people naturally pay attention because their words carry weight. Their silence has created anticipation rather than confusion. This quiet confidence is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. Modern culture often rewards constant visibility. Social media encourages continuous sharing, immediate reactions, and endless comparison. Many people become anxious if they are not posting, commenting, or responding. They begin measuring their worth through likes, messages, or external validation. Over time, this creates dependence on the opinions of strangers. Silence becomes frightening because it removes the constant stream of reassurance. Yet true confidence grows precisely in those quiet moments when no one is watching. Character is formed in private long before it is recognized in public. Allowing your absence to speak also reveals the quality of your relationships. If someone values you only when you constantly chase them, the connection was built upon effort rather than mutual respect. Healthy relationships survive periods of distance because they are grounded in trust instead of constant reassurance. Sometimes stepping back does not weaken a relationship. Instead, it exposes whether the bond is genuine. Perhaps the greatest lesson silence offers is this: you do not need to announce your transformation for it to be real. You do not need everyone's approval to become wiser, stronger, or more peaceful. Personal growth often happens quietly. The strongest roots grow beneath the surface where no one can see them. In the same way, emotional maturity develops through countless private decisions to remain calm instead of reactive, thoughtful instead of impulsive, and authentic instead of performative. When you stop fearing silence, you stop fearing yourself. You discover that your company is enough. You no longer chase every conversation to escape loneliness, because solitude becomes a place of renewal rather than emptiness. Your words become more intentional, your relationships become healthier, and your presence becomes more meaningful because it is no longer given without awareness. Silence creates value because it reflects inner stability. It allows your actions to reveal your character, your absence to remind others of your importance, and your inner voice to become louder than the endless noise of the outside world. In that quiet space, you begin to understand that the most powerful person in the room is often not the one speaking the most, but the one who knows exactly when silence is the wiser choice. One of the greatest psychological traps a person can fall into is living for the approval of others instead of living according to their own purpose. From childhood, most people are taught to seek praise. They learn that good behavior earns acceptance, success earns admiration, and obedience earns love. Over time, this conditioning becomes so deeply rooted that many adults no longer ask themselves what they truly want. Instead, they ask a different question: what will people think? That single question quietly begins controlling their decisions, their relationships, their careers, and even their identity. From a Jungian perspective, this is where the distance between the authentic self and the social self begins to grow. Carl Jung described how people develop a persona, the mask presented to the world in order to fit into society. The persona is necessary because every community expects certain behaviors. However, problems arise when the mask becomes more important than the person wearing it. Many individuals spend their entire lives protecting an image while neglecting the deeper self hidden beneath it. They become experts at pleasing others but strangers to themselves. Living for approval is exhausting because approval constantly changes. One group admires confidence while another calls it arrogance. Some people celebrate your ambition while others criticize it. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand your intentions. If your happiness depends on universal acceptance, disappointment becomes inevitable because universal approval does not exist. The more people you try to satisfy, the further you move away from your own truth. Purpose offers something approval never can. Direction. Approval depends on other people. Purpose comes from within. Approval rises and falls with opinions, trends, and circumstances. Purpose remains steady because it is connected to your values rather than someone else's expectations. A person who lives with purpose wakes up each day asking, "What kind of person do I want to become?" A person trapped by approval asks, "How can I avoid criticism today?" Those two questions create completely different lives. Many people delay their dreams because they fear judgment. They postpone starting a business because relatives may laugh if they fail. They avoid changing careers because friends expect them to stay where they are. They remain in unhealthy relationships because they worry about what society will say if they leave. Little by little, they sacrifice their future to protect an image that exists only in other people's minds. Years later, they often discover that the people whose opinions mattered so much were too busy living their own lives to remember those decisions. Carl Jung believed that psychological maturity requires individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your authentic self. This journey demands courage because authenticity often challenges expectations. When you begin making decisions based on your values instead of external approval, some people will misunderstand you. Others may withdraw because they preferred the version of you that always agreed, always pleased, and never questioned expectations. Yet losing relationships built upon pretending is often the price of discovering relationships built upon honesty. Purpose also requires accepting uncertainty. There are no guarantees that every meaningful decision will succeed. Every significant path includes failure, criticism, and periods of doubt. However, failure experienced while pursuing your purpose teaches valuable lessons. Failure experienced while trying to satisfy everyone teaches only resentment. It leaves you wondering what your life could have become if you had trusted yourself sooner. One of the clearest signs that someone has found purpose is their relationship with time. They no longer waste endless hours comparing themselves to others because their attention is directed toward personal growth. They become less interested in proving themselves and more interested in improving themselves. Their progress is measured by character, discipline, and integrity rather than applause. This shift changes everything because comparison loses its power when your destination is uniquely your own. Modern society constantly encourages comparison. Social media presents carefully edited versions of success, beauty, wealth, and happiness. People begin believing they must achieve the same milestones at the same pace to be worthy. This creates endless anxiety because someone will always appear more successful. Purpose breaks this cycle by reminding you that your path is not meant to look like anyone else's. Every individual carries unique experiences, strengths, struggles, and opportunities. Comparing journeys only distracts you from walking your own. Living with purpose also transforms relationships. When approval controls your life, you often hide your opinions to avoid conflict. You become whoever others need you to be. Over time, this creates loneliness because people know your performance instead of your authentic personality. Genuine connection becomes impossible when authenticity is absent. Purpose encourages honesty. It allows people to know the real person behind the mask, even if that honesty occasionally creates disagreement. Relationships built upon truth are stronger than relationships built upon performance. There is remarkable freedom in realizing that not everyone has to understand your decisions. Some people will criticize dreams they cannot imagine. Others will question changes they are unwilling to make themselves. Their opinions do not necessarily reflect reality. They often reflect their own fears, limitations, or experiences. Once you understand this, criticism loses much of its emotional weight. You stop interpreting every negative opinion as evidence that you are wrong. Instead, you evaluate whether your actions remain aligned with your principles. Purpose is not always loud or dramatic. It is often expressed through ordinary daily choices. It is choosing integrity when dishonesty would be easier. It is protecting your peace instead of participating in unnecessary conflict. It is investing time in learning, creating, serving, or growing rather than endlessly seeking validation. These quiet decisions gradually shape a meaningful life. Great character is rarely built through one extraordinary moment. It is built through thousands of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. Perhaps the greatest reward of living for purpose is inner peace. Approval can never provide lasting peace because it depends on circumstances beyond your control. Today people may praise you, tomorrow they may criticize you. If your identity rises and falls with public opinion, emotional stability becomes impossible. Purpose creates a deeper foundation. Even during failure, you know why you continue. Even during criticism, you remain anchored in your values. Even during uncertainty, you trust the direction of your life. The strongest individuals are not those who receive the most applause. They are those who remain faithful to their principles when applause disappears. They understand that success without authenticity feels empty, while an authentic life filled with purpose carries a quiet satisfaction that no external approval can replace. When you stop living for other people's opinions and begin living according to your deepest values, you reclaim something that can never be given by the world and never taken away by it: the freedom to become your true self.